This ministry was established by His Excellency the President, retired Brigadier Dr. Julius Madabio. And let me start by thanking him for being very focused and establishing a stand-alone Ministry of the Environment for the first time in this country. So after the ministry was established, he also instructed that all agencies dealing with environmental issues must be placed under the supervision of the ministry. And these agencies are the Environmental Protection Agency, the National Protected Area Authority, Meteorology, Nuclear Safety and Radiation, Forestry, and Wildlife. It has been very smooth because we are all speaking with one voice, and anytime an environmental issue comes up, we all attack it as a front.
Sierra Leone as an LDC country is impacted, of course, by climate change. Most of them, we know that, like flooding, drought, also strong winds, these are prevalent in Sierra Leone. For the Met Agency, since we are to advise government on all weather and climate change related activities, we have over the years diversified our services to the agricultural sector, the marine sector, of course the aviation, and that of the hydrometeorological sector. We are currently providing early warning signs, at least for people to, of course, know what is happening so that they can take decisions as far as disaster risk reduction is concerned. In executing this as part of the Service of Meteorological Agency, we all know that if you want to provide early warning signs, one, you need to have installed weather stations, trained staff, and also some destination platform. Quite recently, we installed about 60 automatic rainfall stations. We also have about 4 marine weather stations and also diverse agricultural stations and also scientific stations. These stations are gathering data about the climate, and also they are being processed by our trained staffs. And then at the end of it all, the output we give them to the public to use them for decision making to cope with the changing trend of climate.
There is now a climate parliament being formed by the House of Parliament to make sure we collaborate together. Since Sierra Leone is also being ranked as the third country that is also vulnerable to the to the adverse effect of climate change. So we are also working in consonance with the ministry and its agencies that are involved. Now, as I'm telling you, there is going to be a privilege on all the review process of your act. There are now 6 legislative bills that have been submitted to the House of Parliament, and that also need our attention because we are going to also make sure we look at the bills which is now before Parliament, so that we'll be able to make sure, yes, there are so many issues that are supposed to be part of that bill that can give you the leadway, the agencies, to make sure, yes, they have proactive measures that can also help them to fight the adverse effects of climate change.
The EP has the focal point for all multilateral environmental agreements, and the country that has signed the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement that has been ratified. We've been working with organization, institution that houses the UNFCCC focal point, that is the Sierra Leone Meteorological Agency, to develop several documents that are required by the UNFCCC. For example, we are presently in the process of developing the first biannual update report. We've just concluded the project implementation plan of the 4th national communications. We've already submitted our 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. That is the requirement. And also, as we speak, we have completed the initial national adaptation plan. Please take note, we'll be doing all of this in association with or collaboration with the Sierra Leone Meteorological Agency, and obviously our supervising ministry, that is the Ministry of the Environment.
It goes without saying that climate change is a big issue, and it's one that impacts greatly on the lives of people. And we've seen that all over the world, Sierra Leone not being an exception, because we've had our own challenges as a result of climate change. But the biggest recipient of climate change really falls within the agriculture sector, in the sense that for us, livelihood is a big issue. We have to provide for the population, and with the irregular weather patterns, it affects our activities. So as a ministry, obviously, since we've taken over, we've looked at all those various components that will usually impact on the agricultural sector, and therefore we have decided that as part of mitigating climate change, as part of managing the land we actually decided to go for climate smart approach agricultural systems. In order for us to do that, we try to encourage obviously our farmers to move away from their traditional method of slash and burn, and for them to actually move away from the activities in the upland and rather focus on lowland.
We have trained 560 forest guards. Government of Sierra Leone use our meager money we have, about 5.6 billion. We train them for a month and a half. After the training, we deploy them all over the country. All protected area, we have our officer being deployed. And in the areas that degraded areas all over the countries, we have planted up to 100 hectares in the OKMP, the Tambakani Park. We planted 100 hectares. At the Kangaroo Hills, we planted 200 hectares. At the wetland, we have planted up to 70,000 along the countries. We have planted, and those plantations are doing well.
Government is very, very much determined to reverse the adverse effects of climate change and other environmental problems. Therefore, government has decided to embark on a national tree planting project to ensure that some of our degraded lands are reforested. Therefore, we have earmarked the planting of 5 million trees from last year to 2023. We've already planted about 1.2 million trees in the first phase of the National Tree Planting Project, and now we are set to plant another 1.6 million trees with the support of government, the support of Ministry of Finance, and I think everybody's on board because no one wants to be left behind. And I tell you, the National Tree Planting Project is very, very successful.
We want our people to move away or refrain from the use of our traditional or sustainable energy practices to a better, to a clean, to green practices of energy or green forms of energy. And that is why under the energy revolution, the government was able to secure funds from the government of UK for the implementation of the Rural Renewable Energy Project. And under this project, we have successfully completed the electrification of 54 children's health centers with a power output ranging from 6 kilowatts to 40 kilowatts peak. And we are currently making frantic efforts for the electrification of another 45 communities with a power output ranging from 40 kilowatts to 200 kilowatts. In addition, we have successfully completed the implementation and construction of a 6 megawatt solar power plant, which is grid connected at Newton, which is 22 miles away from the capital city of Freetown.
Yeah, there is a very great challenge, not only for Sierra Leone, the government of Sierra Leone, but also for other governments. Accessibility to these funding windows is a challenge. Of course, the government has tried in terms of bringing on board civil society, see how they could provide funds for civil society to undertake adaptation projects. Also, there are other donor institutions like the Green Environment Facility implemented by the UNDP, the adaptation funds. We have been able to benefit for some of this funding window, the Least Developed Country Fund. But when it comes to the Green Climate Fund, it is a major challenge. We've not been able to access the $100 billion, and which we as civil society, our demand is to increase financial support, funding support in the area of the Green Climate Fund. Let it be accessible to countries, developing countries that are the front line of climate change.
The message is very simple. And in this country, we have three key things that are affecting us. One of them is awareness, education, sensitization. We need to educate people on environmental issues. Take note that the illiteracy rate in this country is extremely high, so it takes a lot of time for people to change their attitude. Number two, deforestation. This for me is the single most important as far as climate change issues are concerned. People are cutting trees for building houses, for charcoal burning, for sticks, scaffolding. But that notwithstanding, we can't just say stop cutting trees for charcoal. We need to provide alternative livelihoods, and we need to provide another source of energy. For example, we can go to the LPG, the liquefied petroleum gas or biogas, so that people can use it and so that they remain comfortable. So in that vein, we have embarked on a massive tree planting campaign. Last year, we planted 1.2 million trees. This year, the target is to plant 1.6 million trees. And by 2023, 2024, we would have planted the target, which is 5 million trees.